All right. Today we're pulling back the curtain on something that affects everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, whether you realize it or not, the Civil Service Act. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sounds a bit dry, right? But trust me, this is the rule book, the actual operating manual for how the government gets anything done.
I mean, really think about it. Governments come and go, politicians change every few years, but the country keeps on ticking. The schools, the hospitals, the ministries, they all keep functioning. So who's behind that? Well, it's the civil service, this professional body of public workers. And this act, it's their guide to everything.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at what the civil service actually is. Then we'll follow the career of a civil servant from day one to retirement. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the rules they live by. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why this thing matters so much.
Okay, let's jump right in. To really get what this act is all about, we have to start with the big picture.
Honestly, this is the best way to look at it. You know how your phone or computer has an operating system that makes everything work? Well, the Civil Service Act does that for the government. It's the background code, the HR manual that lays out the structure, the job roles, and the procedures for absolutely everyone, from the newest clerk all the way up to a permanent secretary.
And here's the official wording, right from Section 3 of the Act. What that legal language really boils down to is this. All those thousands of different government jobs across all the ministries, they aren't just a random collection of roles. They're all part of one single, unified body, the professional administrative engine of the country.
So now that we've got a handle on what the civil service is, let's follow the journey of a person inside it. It's a path that's really carefully mapped out by the Act and its regulations.
You see, there's a very clear, very structured career path. It kicks off with recruitment, getting hired into a specific class of job. Then comes a super important trial period called probation. Once you're through that, you start your long-term service, doing your job, earning promotions. And of course, the Act even lays out the very specific ways that a career can end. And what's really interesting is how probation is designed. You might think it's just a test, but according to Regulation 24, it's actually meant to be a supportive process. Look at the language: opportunity to learn, acquiring experience, sympathetic supervision. The goal is to set people up for success, not just to have them sink or swim. It's about fairness right from the start. Then, when you get to the end of that life cycle, Section 12 is just as specific. Leaving the service isn't some vague concept. It happens in these clearly defined ways: dismissal, retirement, and so on. Having this clarity is so important because it protects the employee from being let go for no reason, and it protects the government from just losing people unexpectedly.
Okay, so this brings us to the real heart of a civil servant's day-to-day existence, the rules they have to play by, the rights they're guaranteed, and what happens when things go wrong. Now, this is a big one: political neutrality. Section 10 draws a really bright line in the sand. A civil servant cannot be an active political player. So no running for parliament, no publishing articles on political debates. But, and this is key, they absolutely keep their right to vote. It's a delicate balance, right? It's all designed to make sure the public service works for the country, not for whichever political party happens to be in power.
And if you want to understand the weight of this responsibility, just listen to this piece of the oath they have to take. It's all about confidentiality. Think about it. Civil servants see sensitive information every single day. This oath is a serious promise to protect the secrets of the state. It's really the foundation of the trust we place in them.
But what happens when there's a major disagreement, say over pay or working conditions? Well, the Act has a formal process for that too. If the government and the Civil Service Association can't come to an agreement, the issue gets reported up the chain. The minister then has just 21 days to send it to a special tribunal. This whole system ensures there's a fair hearing for both sides. And here's the crucial part. Whatever that tribunal decides is final. Section 21 makes it absolutely clear. Their decision is binding. This whole mechanism is there to make sure disputes get resolved for good, so the business of running the country can continue without getting stuck.
Okay, so we've looked at the structure, the career path, and the rules. Let's zoom out now and ask the big question. Why does this one single law matter so much for the whole country?
When you put it all together, you see that the Civil Service Act is truly a cornerstone of good governance. It creates fairness because everyone from top to bottom has to follow the same set of rules. It gives us stability because the essential work of the country doesn't stop just because there was an election. It builds in accountability. And it establishes the very idea of a professional, impartial service whose only job is to serve the public.
So it all comes down to this fundamental question.
The Civil Service Act is really an attempt to answer it, to create a legal contract. It's a promise of stability and fair treatment in exchange for professional, impartial service. And striking that balance is something every healthy democracy has to work on every single day. Thanks for diving into this with us.